the ones that were more successful were the ones that took more risks. I think a good business owner is always going to be somebody who takes risks. Of course, starting a business is the biggest risk of all. After that, the next biggest risk is quitting or not doing enough. And I would say the people who I've seen successful are the ones that didn't stop trying.
Welcome to Growth Lab Sessions. I'm Joao, CEO of Stealth White Label Agency, and my mission is simple: to help marketing agencies grow and build sustainable success. And today I'm joined by a true globetrotter and serial entrepreneur, from building companies while traveling the world to leading ventures that help brands and founders scale. He's proven that you don't have to stay in one place to create massive impact. He's the owner of Omni and Grow Big Ventures, a digital nomad, and the founder of Where Nomad. Yarden Hofer, welcome to the Growth Lab Sessions. Are you ready to take it to the lab?
Let's do it. Glad to be here.
All right, awesome. Thanks for being here. And man, share a little bit of your background with us.
Oh, yeah, tough one. My background started technically way before high school. I'd always loved sales. One of my family members, they had a sort of like a puzzle shop on the pier in San Francisco. And I remembered as a kid, I would love, whenever we were visiting them, to go and work. I would be in their shop talking to new people coming into the shop. And it was just such a pleasure for me to be able to interact with somebody, show them a product, a value, see their joy from the product, and eventually convince them to buy that product. You know, at that age, I think I was around 10, 12 maybe, started pretty young for that. And it was just always something that I saw a lot of joy in. And so as the years went on, I ended up working, ironically enough, I think in middle school on a crypto project that I came across on a website called Kickstarter. They also had one, I think, on Indiegogo. And I ended up just interacting with that team. I was young, I was in middle school. They didn't know that. And I was actually helping run some of their forums for their projects. And that started giving me a little bit more, intro into the business world, how they were running their business, what they needed help with. I was doing a lot of customer success management work at that time. And then I sort of jumped into high school after that, of course. And I met one of my best friends and business partners, Zane. That whole story, it's an interesting one, but maybe for another time. But we ended up creating our first company, which I ended up giving to him to continue. That was Smart Media Management. And after that, I'd always loved marketing and sales. And I was fortunate enough just a couple years ago to meet my current business partner, Ibrahim, who I started Omni with.
Nice. Dude, you started so young, like in middle school, and you were already interested in crypto in middle school. Like, what year were you in middle school?
That's a tough one. I think it was about the middle of middle school, to be honest. So I think this was like seventh grade, maybe. I'd say seventh, most likely.
So super young, and that gave you a lot of experience, right? Like by the time you were in high school and university, what was that like for you? Because you started in middle school, seventh grade. When you go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I'd say overall, I guess it reduced some of my fear of starting. I'd started before. I loved talking to people. I never shied away from having a new conversation. And I think that allowed me to sort of understand people a little bit better when it came to the sales side, even though I'd never really sold bigger projects or products, better said, for myself. So I think it made me more comfortable. And I'd also been introduced to failure, right? I didn't always manage to sell something on the pier. That was more so for fun. When it came to now, I need to make money or I want to make money, it became different.
And so let's fast forward a little bit. And what was like what is the business that you're currently working on the most right now?
That would most likely almost 100% be Grow Big Ventures. That is our consulting agency.
What is that all about?
For our consulting agency, one thing we noticed was a lot of what the value that Ibrahim and I were delivering via our marketing company ended up being consulting style advice too. We'd have clients who sign up for our services. They're able to leverage our marketing outreach, but then they come to us and they say, hey, we think our offer's not working. We think our our positioning just doesn't make sense. And so we had two options, right? Option one was like, oh, sorry, that sucks. Let them churn. Or B, we can take a look at their business, take an extra 10, 15 minutes, do a little bit of thinking and say, well, your offer doesn't make any sense. Why don't you structure it this way? And eventually we started getting clients who asked us like, hey, can you work with us on a consulting basis? Can you do this, this, and this? And so Ibrahim and I were like, well, we actually enjoy this work so much more than the actual lead gen aspect of our business. And we provide a greater value, right? We're providing knowledge rather than a service, I would say. And that sort of started building into Grow Big Ventures. And nowadays we work with a ton of companies, whether we provide them like marketing service and plus the consulting. And when I say marketing services, it's more so the tools now. Rather than doing the service, it's LinkedIn outreach technology, it's email technology. And we've been able to build partnerships over the years, which give us massive discounts that we can then pass to these clients and then let them leverage our consulting knowledge to make sure that those tools are successful.
Okay. And just for context for everybody listening, what the service, the LinkedIn service that you're talking about that you now provide tools for, it started out as Omni, which is a company that still provides it generates appointments via LinkedIn outbound messages for marketing businesses, for agencies, for other types of businesses, right? Can you elaborate on what marketing does exactly?
Yeah, sure. So over the years, what we've essentially done is we've taken LinkedIn as what everybody knows it to be as a networking platform, and we've been able to turn it into a marketing platform. We were able to do that by sending what we like to refer to as soft selling messages. So rather than creating a super strong sales pitch and saying, hey, you want to buy my product, it's $10 or $100,000, whatever it is, you're going to get ignored, right? So we found a way to leverage LinkedIn in a way where you can sort of show value before you try and sell them, because everybody loves to receive value, but everybody also hates to receive spam and salesy messages. So we walk a very thin line between that. And from there, we're able to generate qualified leads, because LinkedIn's a powerful platform. If you take a look into it, whether or not you're running it today or you want to run it in the future, Sales Navigator, it is a list of about 1 billion users. If you can't find at least a couple clients out of 1 billion users, you got to rework your product, got to rework your business.
Yeah, for sure. And so what was your offer for Omni?
Our offer, it was split. So we had for a while, and we sort of dabble in this every now and then, the pay per lead, the performance model. We generally try to be a little bit more selective when it comes to who we work with, just to make sure it's clients that we have worked with in like their industries. That way I can say pretty confidently, okay, I expect to receive X amount of results for you, and you only pay us a small setup fee and then per qualified lead. A lot of businesses would prefer that route. It ends up being more expensive for them because we obviously upcharge since we're taking on the majority of the risk. So that's sort of the first business model. And then the other one's just traditional agency model where it's a set amount of delivery, for instance, outreach messages and accounts that we manage, maybe content included. And then from there, the goal is to generate leads.
And so which model which offer has been the most successful for you?
It's an interesting question because it flip-flopped a couple times. To describe that, the pay-per-lead model, we've had clients where in a single month, we'd build them up to $10,000, right? That is a lot more than the base retainer we would have sold them had they started with that when they signed up with us. But they were open. They wanted that. They weren't looking for a retainer yet. They just wanted per lead, and that was it. So there were times where we'd make so much money on pay-per-lead because the right client was working with us. We were getting very strong results. And then there were times where certain clients, whether it was our fault or they weren't able to close on a call or they didn't want to accept enough calls because they were concerned about budget. They're like, oh, well, should I spend these 300 or is this client going to be worth? Like, there's a lot of different things that came into play. I would say overall retainers will create a more healthy growth projection for your business, because now you're not relying on ifs, you're relying on contracts, which is a lot easier to go off of. Contracts aren't always as stable as you might expect them to be, as I'm sure a lot of the viewers will have experienced by now. But it is a pretty stable framework for growth, because now you know you have a foundation, and every month if you add an extra 10K but you lose 2K, you're going to grow up. If you're doing pay per lead, it's very variable.
And so for someone looking to scale fast, do you have any advice in terms of how to structure their offer?
Scaling fast. First, I'd always be very of scaling fast. We've done that many times. One of the biggest first things I'd say before I even get into that.
A quick break in the podcast to tell you about Stealth, my white label marketing agency. If you're an agency owner and feeling stuck in fulfillment, hiring, and team management while trying to scale, this is for you. Stealth helps agency owners like you take fulfillment off your plate so you can focus on growth of your agency, from running ad campaigns and SEO to creating high converting content and managing CRMs. We handle the back end for your clients so you don't have to. Whether you're drowning in client work or struggling to scale your agency, Stealth gives you the support you need to scale without the headache. And if that sounds like a fit, then check out our website link in the description and book a time to speak with a consultant. And now back to the pod.
Make sure your team's ready. We've had scenarios where we scaled too fast multiple times, and immediately we had a larger churn. We got a ton of revenue in the door, but significant churn because the team was immediately overwhelmed. Things were being dropped. Clients had simple requests that weren't being answered to. It comes a lot faster than you'd expect, so make sure you look at capacity. But in regards to offers, I would say making sure that it sounds like a no-brainer. So for instance, if you have large margins on a specific aspect of your business, leverage that, right? And then add in a new service that doesn't cost you a lot to provide. So for instance, one thing we were thinking of is like, okay, how do we increase retention? And then how do we make sure that the package that we're providing has almost too much value to pass up on, despite the cost, right? So we hired one person, which for instance, for copywriting, you can then spread out across almost your entire clients. If you sign up somebody and say, hey, and we'll also do your content, nowadays with AI, with different tools, you can create really strong content really fast, but that's a massive value add for a buyer. And where your price, where you were already charging a certain amount previously, is now significantly more valuable, and you've only lost maybe $50 or $100, depending on how much you're paying for the employee, how many contracts you're selling it out to, etc.
Okay, so when you think about structuring an offer, right? You say that when you think about structuring an offer, you want it to be a no-brainer, right? Expand more on what that means for you.
A no-brainer to me is where it would almost cost the client to do it more themselves than to go with us. It is a situation where there's so much value, so much expertise that in their mind, if they were to now go and hire somebody, buy the tools, try and spend time to learn how to do it, get a couple results, they've spent so much time, which time is money, but they've also spent so much more money than it would have cost to hire us. So in a situation where it makes absolutely no sense for them to do it themselves, that is a no-brainer.
Okay, awesome. When you think about building an agency, right, scaling an offer or working with other agencies, what are the most important aspects for you when you think about their growth, right? So is offer the most important? Is a sales team? Like, walk me through how you would set up an agency for success in terms of the sales aspect.
For sales, yes, offer is extremely important, but I'd say volume is even more important than that. Your offer could be bad, but if you're getting enough volume out there, you'll get enough calls. And if you get enough calls, you'll close. Now, if your sales team sucks, that's obviously a problem. But I would say it's always going to be volume over offer, because even with a bad offer, you will close deals. However, once you realize it's a bad offer, obviously change it. But any offer starts bad until it's proven, right? So essentially, after, let's say, a month, you realize, hey, we've only closed half of what we closed last month. You have two options. You can continue going another month and see if it stays at half. It's a risk, right? If you believe the offer will work, maybe it's a risk worth taking. But if it's not, then you generally what I recommend is go back to what was working, of course, while you rework a new plan going forward. Because that way, there's going to be something in the intermediary that's going to work for you, and you're not jumping from offer that didn't work to offer that didn't work, and now you're 3 months down the hole, and all of a sudden you're strapped for cash.
Now, can you get volume without a good offer? And when you're saying volume, you mean volume of calls booked. Is that
So,
correct?
yes, volume of calls booked. Now, in regards to volume of clients without a good offer, no, definitely not happening. However, I'm a true believer that if you can get enough people to call, regardless of the bad offer, you now have an opportunity to try and sell them. That is already
Right.
miles ahead of if you never even had somebody to talk to.
Yeah. But, in my concept, like when you have a good offer,
Mhm.
that's when you can get volume, right?
It's
Because
easy.
like, how
Yes.
do you get volume of book calls without an appealing enough reason for them to show up to a call?
So, first of all, from what I've seen, a lot of people show up just because they need marketing. That there's a lot of people that just show up because they were just like, oh, I need some marketing. I'm curious. Tell me more. Um, the actual volume with sales and also, of course, calls does come when you have a good offer. But I would still say if you can get in front of enough people, which does happen even with bad offers, because trust me, I've had bad offers that we've ran that we ended up making no money on, but we still got calls. It didn't really end up affecting how many calls we got. Our calls are generally pretty stable. We generate anywhere from, I'd say, 30 to 35 calls a day for sales or more. Um, Based off that, we've always had pretty stable calls, but how many people we closed from those calls, that always fluctuated and usually went down with a bad offer.
So, do you have a specific formula when it comes to creating an offer?
To be honest, those specific offers have been created by my business partner, so he is the mastermind for those offers. However, from what I've seen him do, generally it's sort of a question of FOMO. Make the person feel like they're missing out on something or that they're getting something, vice versa. So, for instance, having a package that's normally priced at this, but right now for a specific reason, like hey, until you close your first deal, it's only this price, right? So make the
Yeah.
person feel like they're getting extra value and that you're working with them rather than against them. Nobody wants to work with somebody that is working against you or you feel like they're working against you.
Yeah.
That's been some of our most successful offers, making people feel like you're basically making no money in an effort to help them get to a certain point. Of course, you can have your
Mm.
margins, but it changes the psychological aspect of, oh, I'm spending so much money for this specific service, and now I
Yeah.
need a serious ROI versus, okay, they're also not making a ton of money. Now they're willing to work with you longer, right? Nothing actually changed. It was just the perspective.
Yeah. So, you've worked with how many companies would you say that you've worked with in terms of generating book calls for them by this point?
Uh, Hundreds, and over 500.
So, is there any similarity between the ones that are most successful and the ones that are least successful?
Yeah, actually, I would say the ones that were more successful were the ones that took more risks. I think a good business owner is always going to be somebody who takes risks. Of course, starting a business is the biggest risk of all. After that, the next biggest risk is quitting or not doing enough. And I would say the people who I've seen successful are the ones that didn't stop trying. Somebody could see little results in month one, be like, oh, I don't want to spend for this for month two. It's not going to work. You give it 30 days. That is very little time. If you go to the gym for 30 days and come home, you're going to look the exact same. But you do it for another 2 months, 3 months, you see change. It's the same principle of as a person, when you look in the mirror every day, you look the same because you see yourself every day. If you watch something daily, you won't notice change. If you watch it over a week, you can watch progress, right? You can see actual changes. That's why for people that work out, they're told do like weekly checks for like photos rather than daily. Maybe take daily photos so you can watch progress, but if you want to see change, look at it over a period of time.
Ooh, I love that answer. Now, when you say that, it makes me think about I just posted a story recently
Mhm.
showing kind of like 50 people that want to start something, and then 25 of them actually put the work into it, and then one of them is the one that actually sticks through it. And actually makes it, right? Because
Yep.
everybody just gives up in the process. And we see that because we're providing marketing services for so
Yep.
many different businesses. Now, I think there's something to be said for the people that stick through it. They're not only doing the same work every day, they're also like changing things up,
Yep.
right?
Yes.
And so, like, what's your perspective when you see a business that's, you
Stack.
know, willing to make changes and take feedback versus one that's not willing to make changes and take feedback? They think they know better, or like, what's that dynamic like for you?
I mean, I guess it comes back to the whole theory of like insanity, right? It's doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. Um, Whenever things in my life have gotten better, it was always due to change. You can't get better if something doesn't change. How's it supposed to change if nothing changes? I'm always a big advocate for change. I say if something's not working, change it. Regardless of where you are in life, it might not always end up better, but at least something changed, and from there you can change again. I would say for the businesses that have been willing to work with us, for instance, our longest client has been with us for I think a year and a half. He had his ups and downs. He had his months where he got half the results he expected, and it wasn't always easiest working with him. But he's a great person, and this individual just never gave up. He knew that the results were there if he wanted them. We just had to go and find them. And so even on a bad month, you look at your history and then you go, okay, well, let's fix this, right? Is there something on the offer that was no longer valid? And business owners will notice that a good offer 4 months ago might not be a great offer today anymore. And things like that they're weird, right? It's like, oh, well, this was working so well. What changed? Well, it could be market saturation. Your competitor could have started sending the same messages. Your audience might have already seen that message. It could be time of the year. They're just that offer is no longer appealing because of the time of the year. Whatever it is, those things have changed for us so often that you actually have to keep an eye on it.
Right. But how do you measure, like how do you understand if it's not working out, or, if it's a problem of the offer, or if it's a problem of the niche even?
I would say niche. Usually, there'll be some historical data from like the time that you've been running the business until the day you're like, is there a problem? I like to go back and look at numbers. I like to see how many clients did we onboard. I like to go and look back at our documentation that says, hey, during these months we were using this copy with this strategy. That way there's some like data I can go back to, because otherwise I'm thinking back like, what did I do then? Like what was our offer? Like what message did we send? So as long as you're tracking these things, you can look for patterns. I try to find patterns in everything because they're gonna be there. There's always a cause and effect. So if something's not working, something caused for that to stop working. And if there's 2 months that something's not been working, I can look for a pattern where I'm like, oh well, this here has been struggling. For instance, our sales team just hasn't been closing. That's probably an issue with our offer. We're getting enough, or the positioning of the offer, because we're getting enough people interested with the calls, of course, but they're not closing. Is it the price now? Is it is it they don't feel like they're getting enough value? So that stuff you can actually go back and look at. And just recently we did. So for us right now, we're going to be refocusing more effort on retainers, for instance, to build a stronger framework again. We looked at the wording we're using being the performance-based versus pay-per-lead, right? We want more opportunity to sell retainers. So rather than saying, hey, this is a pay-per-lead on the first message, now we say it on the call as a downsell, right? So they're still coming to the call because it says performance-based, but now the words pay-per-lead are no longer in that first message, giving us more opportunity to focus our sales on where we want it, and people don't show up with the sort of the idea of, oh, it's only going to be pay-per-lead, which is not our.
Right. Right. Now, Yarden, you're a master at analyzing metrics and trends and stats, right? Now, it seems like you have a lot of your data organized in terms of like leads generated, what were the offers that we were running at that point, how many messages were we sending, things like that, so you can understand the activity, your funnel metrics, and get
Yep.
some benchmarks month over month, week over weeks, closer over closer. Now, for someone that doesn't have all of those metrics set up, all of those spreadsheets or whatever you're using, what's your advice on like a solid foundation for an agency listening to this conversation right now?
Get started, of course. I would say I use Sheets, Google Sheets, for most of our tracking, even some of our P&Ls, etc. So I would say creating a simple sheet where you're tracking like with a tab, September. Right now it's still September, so you put September. You'd put the offer and the copy that you're running for September. You put how many messages you were sending daily, how many leads you got, how many interested prospects you got, and then how many deals you closed. And you just keep that in September. You don't need to do much with that data necessarily in that same month. The principle is in 3 months from now, you're going to want to know that data. And it's going to be a lot harder to go back and figure out, what was the message we sent. For instance, for us, we'd have to scroll through thousands of LinkedIn messages just to find the right message. I don't have time for that. And I don't want my team to spend their time doing that.
No, I love it. So you worked on in Omni, building Omni for how long?
It's over 2 years now. We're approaching 2.5 years.
Okay. And at what point did you decide that you wanted to spend more time doing consulting versus growing Omni?
Uh, uh, it's a good question. I'd probably put it at earlier this year. It's always something that Ibrahim and I had discussed previously. I remember there was a very specific day. I was in South Africa in Cape Town for about a month and a half, and he calls me one day. He's like, "Yarden, like, we need to know what our plan is beyond Omni. I need to know like what are we doing once Omni is sold? What are we doing once Omni is running itself?" And at the time, we didn't really have an answer yet. We knew we wanted to do something bigger. We wanted to go even harder into the market. The question was just what. The same topic that always came up was the consulting aspect. How do we leverage our knowledge to provide value? Consulting, I know when somebody asks, what do you do consulting? It's sort of a very bland, generic answer, but there's a lot that can be done. So, for instance, for us, Ibrahim and I really enjoyed the ops side, building a team, building the actual processes and systems that allow a business to function. That's a lot of fun. The sales side, right? When I take on a new client for Grow Big, a lot of the times their sales structure is sort of non-existent or it's not great. They might have something that's working for them, but it could be working like 4 or 5 times better with just a little bit more structure. So things like that started being, I would say, an interest over a year ago. However, Grow Big was started right around January, February.
And how do you get clients for your consulting offer?
So I would say a lot of our clients that we get for Grow Big for our consulting efforts are essentially from referrals. A lot of people work with us and say, "Hey, we love the work you did. We'd love to have you sort of work with another one of our companies." Or, "Hey, I have a friend that needs some help. Can you step in?" Like stuff like that. And then right now, as of midsummer, we have started our actual outreach campaign. We had enough clientele and enough revenue coming in from January until the start of middle of the year to not worry about anything else but be like the clients we already had. From there, we're like, okay, we're going to hire some internal staff. We brought on great team members in South Africa, and then from there, we're like, okay, now we have capacity. Let's start putting some feelers out there. So I would say we closed close to 20K just in September from that first marketing campaign, and this is recurring revenue, right? So it's not just project based; it's recurring. And our goal is to close anywhere from, I'd say, hopefully next month, 30 to 50K. And these can be big
And that
contracts.
and that's low fulfillment, right? I mean, it's just your time.
It's just, yeah, it's my time. And the cool thing is, if you're good at what you do, it doesn't take you a full time job to consult. It should take you as little time as possible with as much results as possible. So, for instance, for one of our clients, I rebuilt his entire operations team. It's never fun having to get rid of current employees, but sometimes, as I'm sure you've heard, a lot of PE firms will come in and do an entire revamp. Sometimes it's necessary. And that company has quadrupled in revenue. They're doing over 6 figures a month. And it's beautiful. It's great because now it's a process that works. It's a team that cares. It's a company that functions.
And so, how many businesses have you consulted by this point? Just like ballpark.
It depends on if we're referring to like full contracts with Grow Big, if we're talking about like me
No,
personally.
I would just say like consulting in terms of like It could be a contract, or you just provided them consulting that really made a change in their businesses. It could be like in your previous company, from providing insights that you actually saw that that insight
Mhm.
had a major change in their business.
Probably 70, around 78.
70.
Yeah.
So that's just for the audience to get a sense that you've spoken and consulted plenty of businesses to now set you up for this question, which is, what do you think are the biggest mistakes that entrepreneurs are making in their businesses today?
Getting stuck. A lot of entrepreneurs that I've spoken to, especially on the marketing side, for instance, whenever I used to take sales calls for Omni, I would speak to countless every day, probably 16 business owners. It's a lot. And sometimes I would just give them 30 minutes of my time to give them advice, even if I didn't think I could convert them. Maybe they'll come back down the road, and some of them did. Um,
Yeah.
but a lot of the biggest issues were people were focused on the wrong issues. They were afraid to start with their new offer. They were doing too much testing, for instance. So like they just never went live, or they went live but not long enough, or they didn't do enough marketing. So a lot of companies were afraid to take that extra risk of like, okay, I'm going to spend more money, but now I'm going to get data, I'm going to get results, and I'm going to pivot. So it was honestly just, I think, people being stuck. Like I could tell people like, hey, you just got to get started, and they're like, well, we don't know if this offer is going to work, and oh, I would rather wait until November or December to start, or oh, there was always an excuse somewhere about starting, whether or not it was a new entrepreneur I was talking to or somebody that had already built a business. I spoke to a lot of how do I put it? I would say sort of early stage startup founders, people who were doing business first time, and then people who had something that was sort of working, especially consultants that had a business that they were just struggling to get more out of. So I would just say people who were stuck.
So, would you be able to just summarize that in other words and say that the entrepreneurs that have the most success are the ones that are more action driven and get things done every single day?
That is a good way to put it. Yes, I would definitely put it that way.
Because, like, that's the like, that's the silver bullet that I see with friends that are successful. You haven't even finished your sentence, they already did whatever insight you're sharing. And it's like not second guessing themselves the whole time. And it's like, should I do this? Should I do that?
Yep.
So I love that perspective. Now, transitioning a little bit into building companies, right, which you've been super successful at, while traveling as well, and having remote teams, how do you keep everybody aligned, everybody in the same page when you have people working from different parts of the world?
That, as difficult as it sounds, it was not as hard for me as I would have expected at the start. Um, for me, traveling was something that I really needed to do for myself. It kept me engaged. It kept me alive. I generally spend a lot of time working. So if I'm in my apartment like I am now, there's days where I won't go outside, which is bad. I should go outside and touch some grass, but I don't. Being in another country almost forces me to do that, and I love it. I do love exploring. When it comes to managing the team, I just needed to understand that it was work first, travel second. So I wasn't sad or mad if I missed a day of travel and I just needed to stay inside and work all day. But I knew that I was in a place where everything was new and exciting or just different. For instance, one of my favorite countries to stay in was Argentina. I was in Buenos Aires, and I had myself like, it wasn't super expensive, but it was a nice apartment with a rooftop and a balcony. And every night the sun would shine in directly into my apartment, and I would go outside, sit in the sun, work for a couple hours until the sunset, and I'd just be happy. That was bliss to me. So things like that fueled me personally and gave me enough energy mentally to continue going. Um, and of course, I wasn't traveling as crazy as I was this summer, for instance, with the 30 flights in 2 months. But I was exploring. And when it came to the team management side, I built a good team. I hired people who I could count on, people who were communicative. I won't hire somebody and I would fire somebody that's non-communicative. If somebody doesn't talk to me or they feel like the best way to do their job is to be quiet and never see me notice them, you're going to get fired if you're not doing even a decent job. Why? Because I've never spoken to you. I don't know you. I don't have a relationship with you. Um, and I've seen that in a lot of jobs. But principally speaking, I was just always calling my team, even if I was exploring some castle in Switzerland, for instance. I was like, oh wait, there's something I need to talk about. My team knew they could always reach me, so there was never a lack of communication. We were always talking to each other, regardless of where I was in the world. I was always reachable.
And so, what's your philosophy between working and enjoying exploring?
I've always been somebody who enjoys life a lot. I notice that when I'm happy, my work is better. I know there's people who have different motivators. Ibrahim, for instance, I'm sure he loves to be happy, but he works really hard when he's unhappy, and he sort of likes it. It's sort of a drive for him. For me, when I feel like life is good, like I'm headed in the right direction, I'm free, I work so hard because I want to keep that feeling. I want to multiply that feeling. I want to embody that feeling. So for me, I would say it's super important not to burn out. I've burnt out plenty of times. The time, probably a day before I was having that conversation with Ibrahim about sort of what we wanted to build in the future, I was pacing around my Airbnb in a circle for an hour, trying to find an answer to my thoughts about what to do with the business, how we're going to grow it. It's not uncommon, right? But making sure you take time for yourself when building a business will make you grow a bigger business.
Right. Now, I think that's super interesting that you touched upon the burnout aspect, right? That's something that a lot of entrepreneurs face because it's really easy to just work the whole day and not go outside, touch some grass, like you
Yeah,
said. Um, and you've been doing business for a while, right? So I'm sure that you've learned a lot of ways that you can balance your life in a way that you don't burn out, right? So
yeah.
what are those ways specifically for you?
For me, it's just one of them is I bought a car I really like. I bought a convertible. I've always wanted a convertible. For me, driving is a very therapeutic and fun activity. I purchased a nice exhaust for my car, for instance, and now whenever I step on it, it roars, and I love it. Um, I find time to go to the gym, physical exertion to help counterbalance the mental exertion. Um, I would say finding time for my friends is always very important. When you're spending so much time, yes, working in a team, yes, talking to so many people a day, 16 calls a day was not nothing. You still end up alone in your environment usually. And so it's important to still go out and mingle because that is a form of connection, I'd say, through the computer, but it's not the same as laughing with a best friend over something stupid. Um, so finding balances like that are super important. And then obviously my travel addiction always came in well.
So let's sort of like kind of bring an end to this topic of burnout. Why do you think it's important? And this is kind of obvious, right? I don't even know how to ask this, but why do you think it's important for entrepreneurs not to burn out?
It's avoidable. Burnout is one of the worst feelings you can experience. Everything feels overwhelming. Everything is just dark at that time when you're in burnout mode. Even the good things don't give you any joy at that time, and that's just not a way to live. It's not what you worked so hard for. If you can avoid feeling like shit, you probably should. And so burnout is something that sometimes very fast creeps up on you. And it's hard to sort of see what the telltale signs are. But for me, usually it was, hey, I can't stop thinking about the specific issue, and I'm not getting enough sleep because of it. And I can tell that I haven't actually had some joy in my life for as long as I can remember, whether that's usually a week or 2 weeks or a month. That can be a very, very depressive time, and to do well in business, to get more sales, you can't portray that energy because people pick up on it, right? If they can tell your mind somewhere else the entire time and you're just crazy, they're going to notice you're crazy.
So, yeah, so in terms of burnout, I think that it's super important for so many agency owners to understand themselves, what makes them happy, what makes them excited about business, right? To avoid things like burnout. Now, Yarden, you've been able to create the life that you dream of, in my opinion, right? Or at least you're in a very comfortable spot where you're on your way to just enjoying every day, building your businesses because you've learned how to enjoy your time. You've learned what parts of the businesses that you run that you like the most, like the consulting aspect, right? And you're also someone that I've known for a while, probably like 2, 3 years at this point. We've been kind of seeing each other online. I really love the way that your philosophy on business, right? Because you're super excited about building businesses, but you're also super excited about your hobbies, exploring, enjoying luxury things like your convertible car, which is a super sick BMW, if I'm not mistaken. Walk us a bit more through like your excitement for life and to live and to take your gains from your business and put it into material things that create experiences for you and your friends.
That is a fantastic question, and also thank you. Yeah, I would say a lot of my, I guess, current existence has come from my manifestations. I think any business owner should manifest as much as possible. As a child, I thought manifestation was some crazy magic that was weird, and I didn't want to touch it. Now I just realize it's a question of where you put your thoughts. If I believe that I'm going to go to dinner tonight, I'm going to go get dinner tonight, right? It's a very simple way, simple analogy, but it's how it works. So I would say one of the best things I could also recommend, just for anybody that wants to try and think that way for themselves, even if it's difficult. I read a book. It's called The Secret. I'm not sure if you've heard of it, etc. But that was probably one of the biggest changes in my life, where I was like, whoa, I can just change the way I think. In a sad situation, I could choose not to be sad. I know there are external factors pushing me to be sad, but it is still a choice at the end of the day. I can react however I want. Um, and same principles apply towards what I want in life. So a year and a half ago, I really, really wanted to buy that M4, and so I put my mind every single day towards I'm going to have an M4. I didn't mention it yet, but I'm about a week or two away from buying a McLaren, which is going to be my second fun purchase for myself. It's just always something I've wanted. I know I work harder when I have these things. I think material things are material at the end of the day. So if I lose it or it breaks, whatever, I deal with it. But I know that their existence in my life bring me so much more joy. I work so much harder when I know that there's these things that bring me just a crazy amount of joy. It just it sort of encompasses a really fun experience for me overall.
Yeah, no, I love it. And do you have dream boards or that kind of thing, or is you
I
just like, oh, I want a
had one.
car and
Maybe
then
I can show you. I thought this was. Let me just get rid of all my notifications real quick. Um, this here was my dream board for 2024.
ooh,
And
sick.
what it said was, I will either find a way or make one. I think
There we go.
your solutions already exist. You either need to find them or you need to build it, right? Everybody can create a solution if you try hard enough. Um, the next one was, I will build my dreams and I will fulfill my goals. That is a self affirmation. Every day when I looked at my phone, I just open it, there's a notification. I would see this, and my brain subconsciously remembers and reminds myself, like, hey, you're crushing it, keep going. And then the last one was a pretty famous Latin quote, which is Veni Vidi Vici, which is I came, I saw, I conquered. That one reminds me that I have achieved so many of my goals already. I was in a position where arrived at a new situation. I wanted something and I completed it. And I think any good business person does that on the daily. So yes, 100%. I've had vision boards.
I love it. It's so powerful, man. I talk to a lot of agency owners in this podcast, and a lot of them that have really nice things have visualized everything that they have today, right? Lamborghinis, mansions, McLarens. And, the vehicle that we use for getting those things is our businesses, right? It starts with our mind, starts with our imagination, and then we create marketing agencies or software that can generate enough revenue for us to live lives that we want to live and buy these things that we want to buy in order for us to create these memories and share with ourselves, share with others.
Yep.
And that's what it's all about, right?
Yep.
So on that note, I would like to switch it into, not as rapid as a McLaren, but a rapid fire round
Okay.
of questions. And by the way, congrats on the McLaren. I want to know details about what model it
Up
is.
there.
So I'll DM you later. Now, what is one tool or app that you can't live without while running your ventures remotely?
Slack, team communication, super important. Everything for our team runs through Slack, whether it's like a client needing to reach out to me, usually I just redirect them to my team, or the team having questions. All of my businesses run off of Slack.
So you mentioned Argentina earlier. Now, what is your favorite city or country that you've ever worked from?
Oh, that's a really tough one. There's so many. If I had to list one, maybe Medellin in Colombia, to be honest. That is a fantastic country, super fun. I'm born Swiss, right? I was also raised near the mountains and in the mountains. So being in such a green space and such a fun environment was probably some of the best work I've ever done. I also met some of the clients I have nowadays in Medellin. There's a lot of expats, and I would probably put that as number one.
So, what's a founder or client success story that you're most proud of?
Most proud of. We took one of my first clients back in high school for smart media management. I took him on as a client, I think 7 years after we'd last really communicated together. And I cold DM'd him and I said, hey, I would love to run some marketing for you. I built this company. I'd love to show you what we can do. And he decided, okay, I'll give you a shot. We made him over $20,000 in revenue his first month.
Wow.
And he has stayed with us since then. And it's been over a year and a half.
That's awesome. It's probably super gratifying. Now,
Yes.
what is the biggest misconception that people have about being a digital nomad?
That is expensive. Um, Unironically, I traveled nearly the same when I started 3 years ago versus what I do now. I do splurge a little bit more on food and cool experiences, but the core of my traveling hasn't really changed. It's not like I'm suddenly spending 2 or 3 times the amount on my Airbnb. No, I'm still looking for a nice Airbnb that fits my needs and has a cool view, and that's it. So I would say I was traveling nearly the same as I was now, even 3 years ago when I was making significantly less money.
So, what's one book, podcast, or resource that you would recommend to entrepreneurs right now?
The Secret by Rhonda Bryan, the book about manifestation. If you can believe it, you can do it.
And if you had to pick one place to settle down forever, where would it be?
Oh man, that's such a tough question. I I don't know. I've thought about this so much. It could be Cape Town. I'm a big fan of the mountains and the beach and the fresh air. The people there are awesome. It's easy to communicate. It's English. My whole team is there, so I think it's cool to potentially one day have an office, like a physical office where people go into, and I can build something else out of. It is very far from the rest of the world in regards to if I want to get to the US, Europe, even Asia. It's probably like a 16-hour direct flight, at least for the US. I remember Cape Town to DC was horrible, but might be that one.
Cool. Man, Yarden, this has been such a fun and light conversation, but we also like blended in growth, travel, entrepreneurship all together. I feel like you have this light spirit of doing business, but also having fun in this at the same time, right? I feel like I vibe with that a lot because that's the way that I live. But before we wrap up, what's one single piece of advice that you'd give to founders who want to grow their businesses while living life on their own terms?
Ooh, um, build a strong team. If you have a strong team working with you and behind you, you can do whatever you want to do. I get to pick up and say, hey, Tuesday I'm not working. One of my team members is going to pick up the work, uh, and I go and do what I want to do. And I can only do that because I trust them to get it right. If I was worried that, hey, my team was going to drop the ball or a client was going to leave me if I even stepped out of the business for a day, I couldn't do half the things I want to do. So if you can build a strong team, somebody, and multiple people you can trust and put your trust into, that is when you will find freedom to do whatever you want to do in your day, and therefore you're fully free.
Amazing. And I sign in the bottom of that note with what Yarden said. Building a team is super key to being able to travel and build businesses. And Yarden, for people that want to connect with you and learn more about Omni, Grow Big Ventures, or Wear Nomad, where's the best place to go to?
I would say hit me up on Instagram. I'm always in there, probably more than I should be. It's just at Yarden Hofer. My LinkedIn, I wouldn't recommend it. I don't really manage it myself as much as I should. But technically, you can message me there. But yeah, I'd say probably Instagram's the best place to get a hold of me.
Cool. And for people wanting to connect, it's also linked in the show notes, in the description of this video on YouTube. And for everyone listening, make sure to subscribe to Growth Lab Sessions so you never miss an episode. And if you found value in this conversation, share with a friend and follow me on Instagram at Joao for more strategies on growing your agency and your freedom. Thank you so much, and I'll see you on the next one.